Hello and welcome to Trystology Talk, Sex and the Empowered Woman, where we will be having frank discussions about sexuality, female self-pleasure, and intimacy and play with partners. I am your hostess, Roylin Downs, and this is episode 10. So today I am so excited to bring to you a guest. Yay, our first guest. Dr. Megan Fleming, who is a sex and relationship therapist, getting people to find their way back to sex. And she has been on Oprah, Anderson Cooper, and quoted in Cosmo and Men's Health magazine. We're really excited to bring her in today to talk about hot monogamy. But before that, have you had your orgasm today? Have you? Don't be telling me stories. Okay, so I haven't had mine. That's why I'm stalling. I hate it. Yeah. So I have not had time today. And actually, I forgot. I got home at 1 o'clock last night from working late, and I was so stressed out. I'm so excited to share this with you. I did have my orgasm today because 1 o'clock in the morning is still today. And I did have an orgasm before I went to bed last night because I was having trouble sleeping and I was so wired. And we all know that when you have an orgasm, you can relax and go to sleep. And so that is one of the reasons that I promote an orgasm a day, to help people sleep. So I had my orgasm today. I just didn't have it this morning, which I really, really like. So make sure you have your orgasm, and it doesn't matter if it's in the morning, it's in the afternoon, or just before you go to sleep. So what happened in the store this week? This week I had the funnest thing happen. I had these two ladies that were walking by, and they said, "Trystology for love and passion? I need some of that. Love and passion." And they came into the store and they were just all lit up looking around. And I said, "Oh, if you want that passion thing, turn around." And she turned around and she looked at the wall of toys and she said, "Oh yeah, I need that." So we had a great time. My favorite thing is inspiring people for their love and passion. So that was my quote of the week. So today our guest is Dr. Megan Fleming. She is a nationally recognized and certified sex and relationship expert, which you know we love, right? She has over 17 years of experience working with couples and individuals to discover what's holding them back from the sex and relationship that they want. She is known for her practical advice and easy to follow guidance. And she's also the author of the new book, Invisible Divorce. I just love this concept. My favorite thing is going to be our topic about hot monogamy today. But before I start, I just wanted to say I love her motto. Her motto is become the happiest couple you know. Inspire others, individuals, couples, and communities. So it's not just about me or you, it's about the whole community to take up the challenge and create the reality of what's possible. So welcome, Megan.
Thanks for having me, Roylin. So good to be here.
Yeah, so great to have you here. So you and I were talking about hot monogamy. So talk to me about kind of what it is you do and how we got to hot monogamy.
Well, I think unfortunately in our culture, there's sort of this idea that monogamy equals monotony, right? In the sense of as if it's boring, same old, I've known my partner for how many years. But I personally think, and I know that I'm not alone in this, that it's in relationship and with that safety and that security and that stability. To me, it's like being on the high wire, that tightrope where, you have the safety net, you were there for each other. So you can really push those boundaries. And I think it's a huge opportunity to recognize that in a monogamous relationship, you can have the excitement, the curiosity to figure out how to, experience the most pleasure you can.
No, I think that's great. It reminds me of how I talk about vanilla, but it doesn't have to just be vanilla and boring. It can be vanilla with, chocolate sprinkles and chocolate sauce. So you have this whole range of like you said, a safety net, but this possibilities of exploring things within the relationship.
Yeah, and I love what you said. Like I always say to my clients, it's like we always have our standbys, right? Like I love vanilla. I like chocolate. I actually personally like mint chocolate chip. But the point is you have your go-tos, right? Everybody should sexually have their go-tos, right?
Right.
It is their version of their quickie. It's the thing that they know reliably and consistently gives them pleasure. But then ideally you're always sort of exploring, you know, I call it tools in a toolbox. You know, you don't want to feel like you always need a tool. You don't always feel like it's got to be something new every time because you have your standbys and your favorites. But I think every now and again, spicing things up and adding something new is really awesome.
Right. We talk about that a lot as well, because my philosophy of an orgasm a day and increasing that intimacy, that I love the toolbox, because we have our toolbox here as well, and tools for the relationship. But it is interesting that people do believe that monogamy is so boring. You know, it's not. But I really do like the exploration within that. So how do you go about exploring that with couples and increasing that hot monogamy?
Well, I think the first thing, as we're talking about, is that mindset, right?
Yeah.
You know, so often I work with individuals or couples, they can't even imagine, they can't even picture, right? I call that foreclosure of imagination. Like in their own mind's eye, they don't even see themselves having, a sex life where basically sex feels worth having. That's one of the things, the complaints that I hear, right? It feels mechanical, it feels predictable in a way that it doesn't feel worth having. And so I think starting with the mindset, because it's, the biggest sex organ is our brain.
Right.
So it always starts with the mindset, right? What's
right.
possible? And can you imagine, can you picture it? And really just starting with that, right? The visualization, and just sort of maybe even sharing fantasies or a sense of what you'd like to experience, I think is a great place to start.
Well, one of the things that we talked about in one of our recent episodes was hibernation, and it kind of touches on what you're talking about, where I discussed that the body kind of goes into hibernation. So once you kind of shut down to sex, then it kind of takes a little bit to find your way back. And so with the brain being the biggest sex organ, you think, I'm not interested in sex, so we're not going to need to do it because I'm not in the mood. And I think that the mindset is a big piece of it, because you have to choose to wake up the body out of hibernation, and you have to choose to want to have intercourse with your partner. Is that right?
Sure. I mean, again, what you're saying is you got to want, right?
Right.
That's the place of desire. And then you're also bringing up the law of physics, right? Which is something in motion stays in motion. Something at a dead stop is like, takes more energy, literally takes more energy to get it going. Right. So I think anybody who's in a hibernation, I call it a cold engine, right? It's sort
of cold
like,
engine?
Yeah, it's a cold engine. Like it's not on your radar, as you said. Like you're not thinking about, like it's not even in the mind's eye, right? So right. For women, I always say, keep your inner sexy pilot light on. You actually have to create that sense of it's on your radar, right? It's on your mind. So whether that's through thought or fantasy or reading or self-stimulation, however that looks, but there's a value in sort of keeping that pilot light on.
Absolutely. I love the pilot light idea, because one of the things we talk about in the store a lot is that men are like microwaves and women are like crock pots. And do you ever kind of talk about that?
But I like this like slow simmer idea. I'm imagining about the crock pot. I haven't thought about
it. Exactly. Well, here's one of the things that brought up for me when you were talking about, the keep your pilot light lit, because the women do need the slow simmer. It can take a woman 20 to 40 minutes to have an orgasm. So
some, but not all. Let's just keep
not
clear.
All. Yeah. Can take. Yeah, everything we talk about is kind of this broad stroke, but there are always different shades on the spectrum. But the concept of women like the simmer, we for the most part, most women are crock pots. And so I once saw this pastor, I was looking up men are microwaves, women are crockpots. And there's this pastor who talks about how his wife lights a candle in the morning to say that she's interested in lovemaking tonight. And so he has the entire day to warm her up and simmer her. So he says loving things to her. He takes care of the kids. He keeps them away from her while, she's cooking. He does the dishes. And the most hysterical part was when he forgets that she lit the candle in the morning and she's doing the dishes at the end of the night. She blows out the candle and he's like, ah! So this men are, the simmer thing. It can be an all day thing. It can be, a 20 to 40 minute thing. But it's a way of couples connecting and kind of communicating that I'm interested in lovemaking by lighting the candle, and then the other partner kind of simmering.
Yeah, I think an important thing about what you're bringing up is that, so often we think that sex is spontaneous, right? And, there's this whole cultural idea about that. And, I think for most couples, especially if you have young kids and things like that, the reality is if you don't plan the time, it's not going to happen. Right. And so, I sort of say you plan a vacation, you don't enjoy that any less, right? So right. How do you think about sexuality, like your sexy time in that way? Because the reality is I don't know and you don't know what you're going to feel until you're in that moment. Right. But if you create the time and you really preserve it, then you can create the conditions, right? What is going to more likely be sort of a sexy time. And what you sort of alluded to earlier is this idea of you have the entire day, right? Like, how do it's a sexy text, it's the I'm thinking of you, it's the email, it's all the ways in which we connect during the day so that we're really creating the energy for what you'd like to experience or have happen in the evening. Well, usually it's the evening, could be the morning.
Right, could be the morning.
Could be when you're most rested and relaxed, it could be anytime.
Except for if the kids are running around. I think that the interesting thing is I've talked to a couple people about, and you probably engage with a lot of people, that, sex once a month. What is the kind of a frequency that is kind of healthy for people? Because I was told that I was a unicorn for striving to have an orgasm a day or make love with my partner, 3 to 5 times a week or even 2 to 4 times a week, that I was an anomaly and that most of the world is only once a month and that's it. So that would be 12 times a year if I'm doing my math correct. And my counter to that, a couple people who've said that to me was, no, I engage with my partner on a daily basis. I create that intimacy. I create that connection so that it is a natural aspect of our relationship. Is that part of hot monogamy? Is that where you go to? Or what is the normal? What's the norm?
What's the norm? Well, you said a few things there. One, if people are only having sex once a month, tactically the definition of a sexless marriage is less than 12 times a year. So you're really bordering on a sexless relationship if it's once a month. Right. That means that I'm somebody who, you have to know yourself. I call it self as expert. We don't want to be in that comparison trap. So I used to memorize the data from the National Social Health and Life Survey, yada, yada, about what the frequency is. And what I've come to appreciate is that it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It matters what works for you, your partner, your relationship. Okay. But I also agree with you that it's a prioritization thing, right? To really value connection and intimacy and pleasuring, you have to make it a priority because life brings us stuff left, right, and center. And when we don't slow down, unfortunately, it's not uncommon that our sex life and the connection gets on the back burner.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. Life gets in the way and you have to choose to be hot and hot in your relationship, and you have to choose to want to have that lovemaking. And I agree, everybody's frequency is different. But I find that when people haven't made love for 2 to 3 weeks, they go into that hibernation state where they don't need it as much anymore. So it's that kind of catch-22. We might be connected, but life's too busy. So now I'm not interested in sex. And so now it's harder to get back to sex.
Yeah, I mean, the longer it goes, it feels like I say to my couples, feels like crossing the Grand Canyon,
Right.
and that could be years, it could be weeks, it could be months. But the point is, again, that physics, right? Something in motion stays in motion, right? So, how do you create energy that works for both? And in my experience, usually one partner, typically the female, the woman, but not always, she wants to feel connected to desire sex. And then also the other partner, it's sex that helps them feel more connected. And I always sort of say that that flow state is when both needs are getting met, right? For each partner.
Right. So when you have a partner that wants to be connected, I find that in the relationship, there's usually somebody who is wanting, honey, can we have sex? And the other one that's going, well, it'll happen. It'll happen. How do you bring them together for that?
Well, I think it's to help them recognize what the win-win is. So part of what I heard you say, and I think it's important for people to recognize, is the low libido partner, the less sexually interested, whether they want to be or not, they're in control of the sexual relationship. That's just the way that it works. So I think it's recognizing what is the value of turning oneself on and starting with yourself and thinking about sexuality and pleasure, not just for your partner. It's not duty, it's not obligation.
Right.
It's about what you can experience together. And when and if it's not top of mind or on your radar, like how do you sort of mindfully create time and energy so that you're simmering that pilot light so that you see the value and the win-win of holding that energy and bringing it to your partner.
Yeah, so I see that. I know that that's in my relationship as well, where we kind of have that balance where we're able to navigate that. But I do have customers that their body's just not in the mood. Do you ever recommend, people ask me, how do I get in the mood? And I usually recommend like a stimulating balm that you would put on the clitoris to wake up the body a little bit, or the action of the simmering aspect of kind of texting and the engagement. Any advice you have on that, getting that partner in the mood that has either the low libido or kind of is in hibernation? How do you find your way back to that?
Well, I think again, it starts with the mindset, the intention, the seeing the value of getting yourself in that space. And then to your point, it's like, sure, it could be a balm, but it could be, first of all, I think fantasy, getting your head, so maybe erotic reading, what sort of puts your head in that mental space. And then there's also a huge amount of sex toys, right? So it could be like the Fiera or the Womanizer, which is a little bit different than a traditional vibrator. In fact, the Fiera, their tagline is the before play, right? So it's this whole idea of how do you sort of get yourself simmering, right? Even before your partner shows up, that it has that suction quality. So it brings sort of the blood flow and vasocongestion, which is part of the arousal response.
Right. I've also encouraged couples to do like touch is your most basic sense of intimacy, and so we have massage oil candles, and then we use vibrating tools to massage with, then tease, and then you can use it on the body anywhere, him or her. So we've got a few toys like that we recommend that we encourage with the intimacy, just with touch, just getting that back to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, so often our culture, like one of the complaints I hear from women is often he wants to go for the gold, right? Like he's just like going for the vagina. And she's like, whoa. The thing we say the biggest sex organ is the brain, but the biggest organs are skin, right?
Yeah.
Head to toe. And I think most couples forget that and they get very narrow, focused on whatever they know or works for them. And so I think holding that space of curiosity and exploration is really awesome.
Yeah, I think that, and that is where the hot monogamy is when you can stop going for the gold, like just the wham bam thank you ma'am kind of thing that I love the going for the gold. It's a lot classier.
Women don't like it. Like it's too, our culture's so performance focused. It's like, it's disturbing.
Yeah, it is. Well, I always, I think if men understood how the clitoris worked or the body worked or how women need to simmer, it wouldn't be just, a 2 to 3 minute, lovemaking done and the woman's laying there like, yeah, wow, that was great. And I think that, there's so much information now that's coming out about the clitoris. I couldn't believe. I don't know if you knew this. The big thing about clitorology, they did a thing in Huffington Post where the clitoris was actually taken out of the medical journals in the 20s because, it wasn't that important. And yet it's like the key aspect of women's ability to achieve orgasm and pleasure, right?
Yeah, I mean, the clitoris has over 7,000 or is it 9,000 nerve endings, far more than the penis, the reality is. And, I think women aren't always aware of, all the different ways in which their body and their clitoris can give them pleasure.
Right. And I think that our society isn't willing to talk about it either, and that the clitoris has been such a understated aspect of a woman's body. And so I think through a lot of education, not only of women owning their orgasm, that's my thing. Women need to own their orgasm, understand their own bodies so that they can share it with their partner and then have fun when they play together. But by educating women about their bodies and then educating men about women's bodies, I think that it comes a long way to getting to that place of hot monogamy.
Yeah, 100%. But I also, to your point, I think it's great when a woman knows for herself, right, what gives her pleasure so that she can communicate that. I must say, I definitely have some clients who they really prefer, right, that they're not comfortable for whatever reason,
Right.
sort of exploring their own sexuality or even touching their own bodies. So, if it looks like that, then it's sort of like, okay, then how do you create that communication and conversation with your partner? Because right. However you get there, there's no one direct road, it's whatever path you choose. But ideally, you're finding the path that leads to your pleasure.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I've had clients in here where the woman said, she needed a particular toy to help her with something that she was going through. And in this case, it was a woman whose cultural background, I believe she was Syrian, who absolutely did not self-pleasure. And so this was like a $200 toy. The oscillator, I'm sure you're familiar with it. She had MS, and so she couldn't have a vibrating toy because it triggered her MS. But the oscillating toy worked really well for her, or she felt that it would. But she said to her husband, I will not use this on myself. And I said, did you hear her say that? Because I don't want you spending this money if you're not going to use it. Are you going to be comfortable using it on her? Because she's clearly not comfortable using it on herself. And he said, yes. So you really have to honor the everyone's individual aspects and needs when they go into something like this, right?
Absolutely. And again, as you said, for her knowing herself and what would or wouldn't work in terms of, in a sense, the technology, but also knowing herself if she wasn't going to use it on her own, really getting his support, being like, and again, I always frame it, how do we find the win-win, right? It's in the best interest of both partners to figure out what are the different ways that we can give each other pleasure. Right. It's a giving and receiving, right? It's that sense of, one of the biggest turn-ons is usually seeing your partner's desires. So it's like helping each other both get that win.
Absolutely. I always say we go with the least comfortable person, and in that case, that was her. And so figuring out the win-win. I love that approach. That's great.
It's interesting you say that because as a couples therapist, we always say, you start with the withdrawer, the person who's not even on the dance floor, right?
Right.
In couples therapy, we got to get the person off the dance floor on the dance floor to work in the relationship. So same thing sexually, right? The person who has no interest is off or she's off the dance floor. We have to get them back on.
Absolutely. And in my case with the store, not everyone is comfortable with sex toys. And so when you've got a reluctant partner coming in about another partner that's wanting them to try a sex toy, it's like when you see that reluctance, you don't want to push. You can't push and make the uncomfortable person more uncomfortable. You want to bring them in. I love the dance floor idea. That's a great one. Well, this has been a lot of fun. So where do we find your stuff? You're on, your website is fabulous. I love the name of it. GreatLifeGreatSex.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
Great. And then I know we didn't get time to talk about your book, Invisible Divorce. We will have you back again. Is that going to be all right?
That'd be fabulous.
Great. And anything you want to say to our listeners and our people watching today on our YouTube channel?
Well, I guess it's just to say that it's great that there's this opportunity for people to just focus on themselves, their relationships, their bodies, and, feeling pleasure because, I think women in particular are often socialized to not experience pleasure in their bodies. And so anything that empowers women to own their pleasure and their pilot light, to me, is something that I'm 100% behind.
Yes, I love that, the pilot light. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was fabulous to talk about hot monogamy, being awake, being aware, and lighting that pilot. So Megan Fleming, that was Megan Fleming joining us today, and thank you so much.
Great. Bye.
Bye. So that was our episode, Trystology Talk, Sex and the Empowered Woman. I'm your hostess, Roylin Down. And remember, you can always download our episodes off of TrystologyTalk.com, or you can view them at youtube.com/Trystology. We look forward to having you in our next episode, Trystology for Passionate Wellbeing. It's okay to look.